Aloha, namaste. This is Radha, and I'm here to talk about some shifts we have coming up this week. We have Venus first on the 12th, Mercury, and then the Sun both on the 14th, all moving into Gemini from Taurus. So we just had our new moon in Taurus, and we've just had all this energy in this land of earthly pleasure, feeling everything that we want to feel good, following our desire, and allowing ourselves to really relish in the ways in which we have to take care of our bodies and ourselves in this material world, whether that be food or our environment or our relationships with other people. Now that the planets are slowly starting to trickle into Gemini, we're going to see a real shift from this values-based land of Taurus into the more mental realm of Gemini. And in Gemini, it's a masculine sign. It's ruled by Mercury. And there's this quality of vacillation that comes from a constant flow of information where we are really trying to grab hold of what is true and what is not true. It's the land of ideas. And in this internet age that we're in, there's a constant influx of information. You could never run dry. You don't have to go to the library anymore or find an engaging person to have a conversation with. You can just go online and be in a rabbit hole forever. And many people I know who have planets in Gemini sort of end up in that space or avoid the internet altogether because they're aware of that inclination they have. So when we see each of these planets move, they're all going to operate differently in this field of Gemini. And they're all moving in on a star called Mrigashira. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can see the sort of procession of these planets. So I'm making this video on June 10th, and we see in 2 days, Venus has now moved into Gemini. And she's in this star called Mrigashira, which also Mercury and the Sun are in, because Mrigashira bridges Taurus and Gemini. And if you remember the story I told around Rohini, where her father, the creator, was wanting to utilize her beauty and all that she brought, how she was his favorite daughter in some ways. He wanted to create perfect beings, and in so doing, he offended her. And this reaction she had was to turn herself into a deer and flee to another dimension, to another plane, because she didn't want, she didn't like her father's idea. And so this star is one where we go away from our family, away from the values that we have known and that we feel security with, and move into a more unknown realm where we have to learn new things. We have to step outside of our comfort zone. And we do this first in the realm of the mind through our ideas. We envision that there even is a world outside of our own. If you've ever traveled into a country that has a lot of rural parts, there are places maybe they've never even seen outsiders before. They might not even really know 2 villages over what the name of it is or have even visited that far. And so this notion that first we have to know there even is anything else out there. And then we have to go. We have to be willing and brave enough to transform ourselves in some way to go. Now, Mrigashira is literally like the deer's face. And if we think of the qualities of a deer, they can be kind of skittish, right? There's this scampering beauty, but also a nervousness and a jumpiness that can occur. Well, this nervous energy really starts to take hold in the Gemini part because there can be a skittish quality to Gemini because it's an air sign, because there's constant movement and everything's always changing like a river. The water's always changing, it's not a pool of the same water being moved around. It's a flowing stream where there's always something new. And this can make us nervous, right? This can, just being out of our element, just being out of a place that we already know can make us nervous. Now, if you naturally have a lot of Gemini energy, you might be more enthusiastic about change, right? People who have maybe more earth signs in their chart or water signs might have a different connection to change, and they might feel a little more anxious with this energy. So we move out of the grounded nature of Taurus into the land of ideas in Gemini, and we want to find, what are we seeking for? We're seeking truth. We're seeking what we've experienced has shown us we've seen a flaw somewhere. We've seen something in our own family values and our own way of being shown the world that might not be everlasting truth. This might not be the way. And sometimes we need to see something else in order to contrast that, to find the similarities and differences in another culture or another way of thinking, another form of ideas. And in order to do this, we have to embody an I. We have to become our ego, which is what the third house represents. We're moving into our ego space, into a realm where different things are possible, and we have to think on our feet and we have to learn new things, but we're also responsible for ourselves. This is where we lose that sense of faith and trust that everything will just be okay. And it's like, well, it'll be okay if I do the right things, if I make the right choices, it'll be okay. And it's where we really see our curiosity and our desire to strive for more and to learn and to compete, even not just with other people, but with ourselves. So Venus is moving here first, and then we have Mercury and the sun moving on the 14th. And I guess by 10 a.m. Hawaii time, they'll both already be over there, but you can see the sun just moved. So Venus is the planet of our relationships, right? It recognizes our happiness. And in the realm of Gemini, we tend to really want to engage in conversation in our relationships. We find intellectually stimulating conversation, playing games, allowing ourselves to be fun and funny and lighthearted in our exchange. There's not a lot of agenda with Mercury's sign of Gemini. Mercury himself here is in his own sign, right? So there's a natural comfort in his own realm. And Mercury really shows that part of us that's flexible, that's adaptable, that's willing to hear new ideas, and isn't going to make a hard judgment call, whether it's right or wrong, true or false right away. There's a discernment available where you can discern truth, but it's a collection of facts before you come to any sort of conclusion. And the two of them together here can really facilitate conversation that's open, that's engaging, and that's honoring of both people's needs and desires, because Venus really brings that quality of wanting to compromise with somebody, wanting to come to some sort of agreement or some sort of connection through our conversation. The sun is less at home in this sign. The sun and Mercury have they don't have a highly inimical relationship, but there's a neutral quality to this arrangement. And one of the things that can come up is just that our connection to source, which is where we get our leadership and authority from with the sun, is in this airy realm of ideas. So we're hearing something and we're like, oh, this is the truth we're going to align with. But like I said, that's not really Gemini's quality, coming to a term of truth. This is more Sagittarius across the way, where we determine what's true and what's not true. And we have beliefs and ideals. In Gemini, we don't have as strong of a stance, which opens us more to different ideas and makes us more flexible and adaptable. But it's not necessarily the energy of leadership, because the sun is where we are more sure. Even if we're not sure, we're willing to, change our stance and adjust when we find out better information. Gemini sometimes has a hard time committing because of that lack of having made a judgment call. And so the sun sometimes has trouble here. The other thing that's coming up, though, that's going to affect Mercury and Venus is that they're all still so close to the sun. If you remember, I did that video on Venus and the sun being so close together, Venus being very combust. That's what we call it when planets are close to the sun, because the sun is so hot, right? It's the star which all these planets are revolving around. And when a planet is very close to the sun, its energy is being burned by the rays, and we don't get the full potential of that planetary energy. So Venus bringing us our relationships and our sense of happiness, and Mercury bringing us our communication and our capacity to really discern information and dispel it out again, is being burned up a little here, particularly when Mercury is near the sun, and you can see they're extremely close as they first move in here. We have a feeling that we're not allowed to speak fully. We're not allowed to be listened to. Often it's an authority figure, as the sun does represent, government, father, presidents, people in charge. And we might feel like the people in charge don't value our voice, that we're not being heard. And of course, because this is our own sun, we are the leaders of our own little kingdom. It is our connection to source. It is our consciousness. It's really ourselves that is doing that to ourselves. I mean, there might be an actual boss or an actual parent or somebody who's not listening to you, but it is us that then embodies that in our own way. We take that as truth and we move forward from that place. So one of the things we can work with here, you know, especially considering the myth I just told, where Rohini is changing herself into a deer and fleeing her father, and here her father is following her, right? And that's what happens in the story too. He follows her, and the next star from Mishira is called Ardra, where all these planets will be moving soon because the Sun, Mercury, and Venus all move quite quickly. We will see, you know, in 1 week's time, look, they're all in Ardra already. Mercury is well into Ardra, and Venus as well. And so at this point, the creator actually gets shot down by Rudra, the fierce howling form of Shiva, because he comes in to protect the maiden in distress, you know, who tried to flee her father. But the fact that in this alignment, we have the father following, and we also have this friend energy of Mercury, you know, we see that that oppression is sort of following us, but we have a chance to make new choices. We have a chance to choose something different. And not even just the part of us that feels like our happiness is being burned, or our ability to communicate effectively, but even our sense of authority itself is in a state of transformation right now. There's a quality of really balancing out the masculine and feminine energies when a planet is transiting through Gemini. It's a masculine planet, a masculine sign, but it has a quality of duality of the genders. It's inherently built into it that it's both a man and a woman together in copulation. It's Mithuna, the sign of Gemini in Sanskrit, is sex. It's not like the twins in Western astrology, where they're usually same gender, you know, twins, sisters or brothers. This is you know, not your sister, not your brother. And that quality of mating, which populates and creates more things. And if we think of this as being the realm of the mind, we have the masculine and feminine aspects of ourself mating to create the different thoughts we have. And those thoughts give us the reality that we perceive, and we act based on that reality. And we have feelings based on that reality. So this place of duality within ourselves, it comes up, where do we, you know, where are we feeling strong? Where are we feeling receptive? And this is also going to feel like it's vacillating quite a bit here. Often people who have a lot of planets in Gemini don't have a strong gender identity. They're not usually the most masculine of men or the most feminine of women. They're usually in a more fluid state with their gender. So this is a chance for all of us to kind of explore that spectrum of how we interact with the world, particularly through our words, our communication, our relationships, which is obviously very present, and with our authority and our sense of leadership, and how we react to authority and leadership. You know, and all these other alignments that we've had are still going on, and I'll talk about them again soon as we move into our full moon. But for now, I wanted to share that I'm going to be teaching a live discussion, or sharing in a live discussion with my cosmically aligned Patreon group. And it's going to be on June 17th, which is Monday. And it's going to be at 10:30 a.m. Hawaii time, which is 1:30 p.m. in Pacific Daylight Time. And usually in these discussions, we come together and different people from the group share their charts, and we talk about whatever the topic is. Since this is going to be on polarity and relationships, we're going to be discussing the masculine and feminine dynamics in charts. There's the inherent masculine and feminine quality that somebody has. So some people are just naturally more in their masculine energy, and some people are just naturally more in their feminine energy. But then there's also how we interact with each other. There, you might, you know, be the most feminine woman or the most masculine man, but you meet somebody who challenges that, who you know, pushes certain buttons in your chart that force you into more of submission if you're more of a leader type person, or if you're normally somebody who is more submissive and you come into an engagement with somebody who sort of, you know, submits more than you do, or you just meet them in such a way where you have some kind of power over them, that's going to come out in your dynamic. And it's really fascinating how this shows up with couples. So I love this topic. It's very much woven in to Vedic relationship matching through the Kuta point system to the way that we look at synastry. And it really can reflect a lot to people about their relationships. There's always things we can do. You know, there's always ways of remedying the different things we see that are challenging in our charts. And when I work with couples who've been together for a long time, we really focus on those remedies. Sometimes with newer people who are just dating, it can be easier to decide, you know, that path is just one that's going to be too difficult to go forward. But I think that one of the blessings with this science of light that is Jyotish is that we have an opportunity to really see what's happening. And when we really see what's happening, we can make a choice of how we want to move forward from there. So I hope to invite all of you to this polarity discussion, because I normally only keep these live discussions to members of my group. For this particular discussion, I've decided to open it up to people who are not in my group. For only $11. So you can come and join in the discussion and have the recording for just this one event. My group is very affordable if you do decide to join, and there's a 1 week free trial, so you can even try it out and still have access to this discussion. But I recognize that some people, that's not something that they're, you know, they just don't like to sign up for things. And I get that. And I also just offered this to people from a summit that I was teaching at, and I wanted to extend that offer to other people as well. So you can find the link in the description to sign up, and you can also get my forecast for all 12 signs that I did this week for my stars report that shows what Venus, Mercury, and the Sun moving into Gemini means for you. Have a blessed day, and I hope to see you again really soon. Namaste.